What's going on YouTube? It's James Prigioni coming to you live from Jersey. Back at you with one that I've been waiting to bring you for a long time because I know this will save you time and frustration. Today, we're talking phase 3 of how to start a food forest. It's all about choice. Let's go. Right off the bat, you may be thinking, choice? What does that have to do with starting a food forest? And I'm here to tell you, it has everything to do with starting a food forest. The choices you make now of what you put in and where you put it will make the big difference between getting an abundant harvest and having lack. Now that we finished phase 1, which was laying your foundation, the fertility for your food forest, and phase 2, which was protecting your investments, now we're on to phase 3, making the choice on those investments. And we're putting money out for these investments. So we want to make sure we make the right ones the first time. And that's why this video is so important to me, and I really want you guys to heed the warnings that I'm about to make. The kind of fruit tree that you choose to grow and the variety will play a huge factor in your level of production. We want to create the scenario where the fruit tree is happy right off the start. So now we're getting to choice time. This can be one of the most exciting times and also one of the most overwhelming times when you're first starting off. So to get started, I have a few tips, and this is where I would start. First, go out to the area you're going to plant and decide what you want this area to focus on. For example, I'm in my 6-year-old food forest right now, and this area specializes and focuses on just an overall diversity. I went out and I went to copy and mimic just a natural forest setting. So I've got a diverse number of trees in here, but instead of just regular trees like in a natural forest, I have all fruiting trees. I've got different kinds of apple trees, pear trees, peach trees, and all different stuff. So my main focus here is for an overall diversity where I'm bringing in all different kinds of perennials, not just fruit trees, fruit bushes, annuals, and all different kinds of plants. So my main specialization for the food forest is just an overall diversity. As opposed to the side garden. In that area, I specialize in berry production. I've got every kind of berry that I can basically grow in this location. I've got strawberries, blackberries, boysenberries, tayberries, gooseberries, almost any berry you can think of. So deciding on what your food forest will specialize in is really going to be dependent upon 2 main factors. Those factors are going to be personal preference and climatic conditions. First, we're talking climatic conditions, and this one is vitally important because you don't want to be wasting your time or money trying to grow a fruit tree that will never produce in your location. What you want to know to grow a fruit tree first is your zone. What zone are you in? The way to find that out is we're going to hop online, go to Google, type in US plant hardiness zone. After this, click the first link. On the top left there, you'll see your zip code. Type your zip code in and this will give you your zone. What zone you're in is going to be based on your average annual winter temperature. One thing to note though is don't take this 100% to heart. These are averages. So I know in my location in the past, I know about a year ago in January, there was a time where I had a temperature that was down to -5 degrees. I know my average is 0, but there have been many times that we've gone down to -5 in my particular microclimate. So I want to make sure when I order trees that I order for zone 6B, even though that mine say 7A here. Again, that's my particular preference. You guys don't have to do this, but it's worked for me in the past. I don't like to really stretch my growing zones too much because the money and the time that I invest in these trees, I want to get production out of them. But it is always fun to kind of press it and get something that you shouldn't have. Now that you know your zone and that your zone is based on your annual average lowest temperature, you can start narrowing down and finding out what you want your food forest to specialize in and choose those foundational trees. Like I said, knowing what zone you're in will really help to narrow down your selection and make your choices easier when coming to fruit trees. But knowing how many chill hours you have in your particular location, that's vitally important as well, because there are some trees that need a certain amount of chill hours in order to produce. Now you're probably thinking, chill hours, what are they? Do I need to worry about them? So the easiest way for me to explain it to you is chill hours are basically the length of time that the temperature is below 45 degrees, where the trees are in dormancy. And some fruit trees need a certain amount of chill hours in order for them to set fruit the next year. So someone like me, who lives in a location where we have a winter dormancy and chill hours that last about 4 months long, I don't even have to worry about chill hours because I know that I'm going to have enough for any of the fruit trees out there. So if you're in a location where it's warmer, this might be something you have to worry about if you want to grow something like an apple tree. But if you're unsure what your particular chill hours are in your location, there are some websites online that you can use to try to find yours. But you can also call your local extension agency if you live in the USA and talk to a master gardener. They should definitely let you know exactly what your chill hours are in your location. Now that we've gone through that process of learning a little bit more about fruit trees and narrowing down that process, we can start going through and getting closer to make our selections. The first thing I like to do now that we've gotten this far is go to my particular area, measure that whole thing out, and get the overall square footage of it. Then I step back, take a look at it, and observe. So this observation period may go for as long as a year or even longer. In the location that I'm going to be planting now, I've been observing that area for 5 years, as long as I've been growing in this location. And I've learned a lot of things about that. This observation period will be so important in the future for you because you should observe where the sun drops, where the shade is the most, and all different kinds of things that'll help you choose the particular kinds of fruit trees you want to plant and where to put them. When observing, you want to go out at multiple times of the year and multiple times a day. You don't want to just go out in the mornings in the summers to check how things are going. All times a year you want to go out and check that location to learn as much as you can about it. By starting out and getting that overall square footage, that'll give me a good idea of how many trees I can put in here, of the spacing of it, and the kind of trees that I want to plant. Now, I'm going to take you guys over to the new food forest so you can get a feel of what I'm talking about. Here we are on the clean slate. This is the best part, choosing what we're going to put in here. We did the work, we got the foundation down. That is the hard work, guys. Most of it out of the way. Even for years, that's the hard work. Now, let's choose exactly what we're going to put in here. I decided in this location, after doing some research on my own, after years of growing in this location, I want this particular food forest to specialize in 2 main fruits, apples and peaches. There are a few reasons that I'm choosing apples and peaches as my main fruits in here. One of the main reasons is just I love to eat them. Apples and peaches happen to be some of my favorite fruits. Apples tend to ripen later in the season, which is good. They're good for fresh eating and they store really well. Some apples can store almost all winter as long as you keep them at the right temperature. Peaches, on the other hand, oh man, peaches. They are one of the best fresh eating fruits you'll ever have. A summer peach here in Jersey, I mean, I would guess it's comparable to Georgia, but they are so good. Although there's something that doesn't store that well, and they happen to be ripening earlier in the season than apples. If you've been paying attention for the video though, you know the choice, it's not just about flavor, especially ours. It's about production. It's about what will grow well in your particular location, and I know that peaches and apples, they grow great around here because I've seen people growing them with no pesticides, no fertilizer, no herbicides, no fungicides, and not even any watering. How do I know that? Because I've done it. You guys have seen it. So I know that apples and peaches, they grow great. So I'm making a big investment on those as my foundational trees. Notice I said right there, foundational trees. These are the trees that are gonna really support, that I'm gonna bank on, that are gonna give me production. This doesn't mean you can't try some things for fun. You guys know I've got persimmons. I'm gonna throw some figs in here and stuff, and try things that are a little different, that aren't really made to grow in my particular zone. But we don't want to just focus on only those trees. We want to make sure we're getting production. We want to have a good foundation. So I know I want to grow apple trees, but the question is, how many and which ones? There are a few factors we need to consider when making this choice. The first one is the size. What size apple tree are we going to be growing? Most apple trees, they're going to be grafted onto a rootstock. This means you're going to have something like, we'll just say, a Red Delicious apple tree. And typically, that standard tree will grow to about 30 or 50 feet tall. It'll get huge. But what we do is we graft those trees onto smaller trees, onto a dwarf rootstock or a semi-dwarf rootstock. When we graft this apple tree onto a dwarf rootstock, this makes a tree stay small, about 9 to 13 feet tall. If we graft it into a semi-dwarf rootstock, we're looking to about 10 to 15 feet tall. So whether or not you want your apple tree to grow in a dwarf or a semi-dwarf rootstock, that's going to factor in on your spacing. But any apple trees that you order, for the most part, they're gonna be on one of these dwarf or semi-dwarf rootstock. If you're in a small area like me, I suggest dwarfing rootstocks. I like to have more trees in a small location rather than just like 1 or 2 or 3 trees. Even though you can graft multiple varieties on one tree, I just like having multiple trees because there is some stability and diversity. So I'm gonna go with apple trees on a dwarf rootstock. This will allow me to fit more trees in a smaller area. And the spacing, that's personal preference, because if you guys know anything about me, I overplant. For instance, if I need If I want 5 apple trees, I may plant 10 or so. This way I can choose the healthiest 5 apple trees. I'm not only stuck with the 5 I originally planted. In regards to spacing, it's just like pruning. You want all the leaves to get light. You want plenty of airflow. So again, it's a personal preference on spacing, but in the future, you can always cut some things out if you have to, and that's what I choose to do. Don't be surprised though, guys. If you followed all these instructions, if you went with the back to Eden method, the thick mulch, and you plant dwarf fruit trees, they might get big real quick because the fertility, man. Another thing that is so important when it comes to fruit trees is the particular pollination requirements. For example, apple trees, what I'm going to be focused on right now, they have particular requirements regarding pollination that you need 1 or more varieties in order to pollinate each other. For instance, a red delicious apple tree, it's not going to pollinate another red delicious apple. You need a different variety, a particular one. So to find out which ones, make sure you go online and do your research and get ones that line up. I know I'm throwing a lot of information at you, but I really think it's valuable and it'll help you in the future. Again, like I've said, these are the choices that will make or break you. If you're enjoying it, hit that subscribe button. Share it with your friends because you know we'll be coming out with more content like this real soon. Now you've got all the information downloaded. It's a time for the excitement where you can really start making those choices, choose what you're going to be eating in the future, plan out your own future. And here it is, my #1 tip for the video. If you can take this away, I'll consider the whole video a success. And that is, please spend your time on variety selection. I assume most of you know that I live in New Jersey. In this location, I'm right by the water. We've got high humidity. And high humidity isn't good for fruit trees. That can usually lead to a lot of disease problems. Diseases such as apple scab and many other fungal diseases. So what I can do is I can go out, I can do my research, and I can find trees, apple trees in general, that are disease resistant to my particular problems that I'm gonna have. And after a little research, I found the Liberty apple. It's apple scab resistant, it's powdery mildew resistant, and it's actually a tree that Paul Gauci grows and he swears by. I'm ordering a number of those. Now I'm ahead of the game, starting out with an even easier path to fruit. This is the same process that I would follow for choosing my fruit trees, choosing my peach trees, any other trees that I'm gonna put in here, or even any other plants. Another tip I wanna leave you guys with is no matter what plant it is, an apple tree or whatever, you wanna plant varieties that ripen early, that ripen mid-season, and ripen late. This way you can extend your harvest, whether it be peas or peaches. I believe that over time, if you use a deep mulch method, if you go all organic and go as natural as you can, that your fruit trees will produce. But if you get the right disease-resistant varieties, I know that they will bring you to production even quicker than if you choose the wrong ones. So I advise you all to do your homework inside first. It'll save you time, money, and frustration. If you're wondering what else to plant in your food forest and how to plant it, that's what we'll get into in phase 4, so you're gonna have to stick around for that. See you in the next one.